It's time for Top Story on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Busy week locally. It started out with a slew of crime stories out of Dansville. A Dansville woman is alleged to have hit a man. The man fell through a Main Street business glass door. Then you had a Dansville teenage boy being accused of cutting the arm of a female relative with a knife. There was an unusual amount of stories like that out of Dansville early this week. Then we had the merger update. All three of the interested schools, Arkport, Alfred, Elman, and Canasarega, have decided to go forward with a merger study. The town of Alfred's renewed their hydrofracking moratorium, so there's another one-year moratorium on fracking in the town of Alfred. And the Alfred Village Board wants to do a ban on fracking. The Village Board in Alfred working on that. Also in the news this week, North Hornell Village trustee Frank Labordi showed up at another Hornellsville meeting. That's happened more than once. Labordi and Larry Hot Dog Stevens have been coming to Hornellsville Town Board meetings and making Freedom of Information requests for some time now. Village trustee Frank Labordi is a lot more vocal than Hornellsville Town Supervisor Ken Eisman or Town Clerk Cheryl Eisman. Labordi came on my show a few weeks ago to talk about this. Since then, both of the Eismans have declined to come on the show to respond to Labordi's claims that the Hornellsville Town Hall is not good about freedom of speech issues or freedom of information requests. Cheryl Eisman did say in a news story, though, that she has in fact responded to the freedom of information requests when they're made. One of the more recent information requests was made about the former Hornellsville tax collector. Labordi's FOIL request, in it he wanted to know if there were any admissions of guilt about the former tax collector. The Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker says that the former tax collector was investigated by the Steuben County DA's office and that the former tax collector did not break any laws, that some mistakes were made, but there was no evidence, he said, of criminal intent. So you've got kind of an unusual situation there because the town of Hornellsville is made up of North Hornell, South Hornell, Arkport, and a few other scattered sections around. And Frank Labordi is a trustee, a village trustee in North Hornell, which comes under Hornellsville jurisdiction, not jurisdiction, but territory. And Labordi is doing FOILs to investigate things like the former tax collector who used to work at Hornellsville Town Hall. Also, Larry Hot Dog Stevens is suing the town of Hornellsville in an Article 78 lawsuit. Both Labordi and Stevens are said to be doing a lot of FOIL requests, so a lot of political opposition that Eisman is facing in Hornellsville, though Eisman was just easily reelected without an opponent. In other news this week, the Allegheny County Legislature is working on passing a resolution to prevent New York State officials in Albany from using the Allegheny County seal from being stamped or being stamped on any printed documents or online documents that have to do with the SAFE Act. Steuben County has already done that. They did that last month. On today's show, we've got two guests, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and State Senator Tom O'Mara. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Brian.
And Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, thanks for coming on.
It's always good to be with you, Brian.
The Washington Post broke his story about how Governor Andrew Cuomo got on the phone a couple of weeks ago with Health and Human Services Director Kathleen Sebelius, pressuring her to act on Cuomo's request to spend billions on Medicaid reform. The article also made a point of saying that New York hospitals have suffered from Obamacare. In the Post article, it also says that an HHS spokesperson was quoted as saying they're trying to make things happen to Cuomo, for Cuomo, within the law. On the part of the article that says that hospitals in New York State have suffered from Obamacare, this is a question for either the senator or the assemblyman. Any complaints from Southern Tier or Western New York hospitals about Obamacare?
Brian, I haven't got any specific complaints yet other than general conversations with hospital directors and presidents and CEOs across the district about the uncertainty of what's going on with Obamacare and how it's going to affect health care overall. Certainly there's always concerns that hospitals have with reimbursement rates. Yeah, I think it's too early to tell in the implementation of Obamacare exactly what the impact is going to be on our hospitals, but there is certainly a great deal of concern about the uncertainty going forward and what the impact is going to be to our hospitals that are struggling already financially.
Assemblyman Palmisano.
Well, I agree with the senator as far as hearing anything specific relative from our area hospitals on Obamacare and its implementation. But I think this uncertainty is the biggest thing, and then obviously there's always questions going forward and on the commitment, especially with the hospitals are so reliant on things like the Medicaid reimbursements and the Medicare reimbursements and how those things might be impacted because. As we've already seen, the implementation of this has been pretty disastrous. A lot of problems already, and when hospitals are making big decisions, when there's a lot of uncertainty out there, it can put pause in dealing with things they might want to deal with, whether they're major capital improvements or infrastructure improvements or major decisions. So, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I think that's probably the biggest concern as we speak right now.
I don't think it's directly related to Obamacare. It's an issue that developed a couple years ago when it was found that New York State had overcharged the federal government for Medicaid services to the tune of about $10 to $12 billion, and it had been going on for a long time, and it had been approved by the federal government over those years, and then it found that was incorrect. So. What the state is trying to do is to have an agreement with the federal government, Medicaid in particular, that going forward, rather than have to pay this money back to the federal government, which was overcharged, that money be reinvested into the state's overall health care system to work with overall savings on Medicaid in New York State.
Assemblyman Palmisano and Senator O'Mara, you've both been big advocates of Medicaid reform. Wondering, this news about Governor Cuomo, is this a good thing?
Well, I think.
Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I think obviously we're trying to save dollars here in the state because we deal with the Medicaid reimbursement comes from the federal government. But in addition to what Tom just said, we implemented this Medicaid redesign team that had found savings in the Medicaid system. And when you find savings in Medicaid, it saves money for the state, it saves money for the locals, but it also saves money for the federal government. And I think also we're trying to say, let us use some of those savings to reinvest back into Medicaid, or whether it's health care or whether it's providing some relief to our taxpayers, because Medicaid is a percentage of that burden. So I think it would be great if we can get some of those dollars back into the state instead of the federal government. Because we're right at the focal point of dealing with these healthcare services in the state. So I think it's an important fight to have, and make sure that we're trying to get as many of those dollars back into New York rather than into the federal government.
Senator O'Mara, what is the latest on Common Core in Albany? I understand there was an education commission in the state Senate that had a hearing on Common Core on Thursday.
Well, there was a press release and a briefing on a proposal that the Senate chairman of the Education Committee, John Flanagan, who has been going around the state having hearings on the Common Core issue, and has also been attending the hearings that Commissioner King has been having across the state. So he's heard a lot from various regions of the state, and is raising concerns over Common Core. Primarily with its implementation and the very poor rollout of the Common Core program, and is coming out with a legislative agenda that will do a couple things. Primarily, the first thing will be to preclude any standardized testing for any student lower than the third grade, because there were concerns about New York City doing standardized tests of kindergartners to second graders, which most people felt was very inappropriate. Also, slowing down this implementation of the overwhelming number of standardized tests and the use of those results going forward. We saw a very poor implementation of this. We've had concerns from teachers and parents across the state, and we're taking those concerns very seriously and coming forward with this to make sure that we can the objective here is to raise our educational standards statewide for our children so the performance is better, but not to do it in a way that is just overwhelmed with standardized tests and rote instruction from teachers reading from modules that they had no part in creating.
Assemblyman Palmisano.
Well, I think this is just another example of what you're hearing as far as the problems we've been seeing with Common Core. And this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. I don't think it's a Senate or Assembly issue. It's something that, we've all been hearing across the state. We had our forum a little over a week ago, and we had about 300 people there. And that was the 10th of 12 forums that our conference is having. So I would expect there's going to be some action taken when we get back in Albany. We're preparing a report. The Senate has some ideas, but it just goes to show, the way this has been implemented, the way this has been rushed through, really without any input. And when you get this feedback that all these people come in these forums, whether teachers or parents or educators, speaking out, it can't be ignored. It can't just be dismissed. We are all for higher standards. We all want to challenge our kids and have the highest standards possible to make sure they can compete in our international community. But it's the pathway to getting there where we're the problem. When you have exhaustive testing, when you have concerns about the privacy issues, when you have a curriculum that's not age or developmentally appropriate for certain individuals, we need to include those teachers in the classroom and have them part of shaping this, and have the state part of shaping this. So I expect that this issue is not going to go away anytime soon. When you have the vigilance with which the parents are looking out for their kids and what's going on in our schools, this is something that's going to need to be addressed, and I think the governor needs to step up and address this issue too. He's the executive of our state. He uses his bullet point for those issues that are important from him. If something's important to him, then he makes sure it happens, whether it's the SAFE Act, the so-called SAFE Act, or whatever it may be, or closing down important facilities in an area. He thinks it's okay, he does it. Well, I think it's important for him to stand out and speak out for the kids of our area and demonstrate that he's for supporting education and address these concerns and issues that are out there.
We're talking with Senator Tom O'Mara and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, and when we get back, we'll talk about the Tax Relief Commission's final report. Stay with us.
Cy Surefine Food Mart saves you money by being the most convenient supermarket. Parking is close to the front doors, and their variety-filled yet simple store layout helps you save time and money by not encouraging you to buy all those things not on your list. And their weekly specials are superb. Here's Larry Jones with just a few of this week's sale items.
Well, thank you, Stanley. Hey, this week at Size, folks, get ready for Christmas with Surefine whole boneless hams, just $1.99 a pound. Juicy, tender sirloin steaks, $3.98 a pound. Francisco Rinaldi spaghetti sauce and pasta sauce, 5 jars, $5. And Vitel Italiano assorted spaghetti and pasta. Get 2 1-pound bags for just $1.
Size Surefine definitely has the best meats in the Canisteo Valley with only U.S. raised beef, cut right in their stores at either location, Arkport or Canisteo. Like them on Facebook or see their ad online at SizeSurefine.com. Thank you very much.
Size Surefine. 'Tis the season to grab the best deals of the year during the Big Finish 2013. Going on right now at Maple City Dodge. Maple City Dodge wants to move out every 2013, and they are making monster holiday deals. The popular 2013 Rams have huge discounts. Get one for under the tree. Wouldn't he love that? And the 2013 Dodge Dart has a rebate of up to $2,000. Holy cow! The 2014s have great rebates too. Chrysler Town & Country Touring has up to $2,500 in rebates. The 2014 Chrysler 200 has up to $3,500 in rebates. The 2014 Dodge Avenger has up to $3,000 in rebates. And hold on to your Santa hat, even the 2014 Jeep Cherokee has a $500 rebate. It's unheard of. And hurry, the Jeep Cherokees are flying off the lot. It's a blizzard of rebates at Maple City Dodge. So tell Santa you have been nice and get a new vehicle. See the Dodge Boys, Gary, Jim, Russ, Larry, and Dale for your new vehicle. Maple City Dodge in Hornell. Visit them online, maplecitydodge.net.
Well, everyone wants to sell you gift certificates this time of year, not surprising. So why should you get your gift certificates from the Sunset Restaurant? Well, that's not surprising either. It's pretty simple, really. The food is good, the value exceptional because their prices are reasonable, and no one will ever be disappointed with a gift certificate from the Sunset. They can be used for the Sunset's famous pizza or prime rib, perhaps the Friday fish fry, or maybe the good taste and value found there at the Sunset at lunchtime with their $5 lunch menu. Your friends and family can share in the good food at the Sunset. Give them a gift certificate. Now, you could not possibly lose with a gift like that. It's just about the best gift anyone could find under the tree, in the tree, or in a Christmas card. Tom and Marcia Davis invite you to treat your friends to their old-fashioned hospitality and outstanding food. Give everyone in your list gift certificates from the Sunset Restaurant, East Avenue, Hornell. The Sunset will be open Christmas Day with a limited Christmas menu. Call now for reservations.
Meet you at the Sunset Restaurant.
Back on the show, I'm Brian O'Neill on the line now with State Senator Tom O'Mara and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. The Governor's Tax Relief Commission report just came out, and you were both disappointed with the lack of the mention of the words mandate relief. Can you tell us about that, starting with Senator Tom O'Mara?
Well, the governor talks about property tax relief, and that's very important because we have the highest property taxes in the country. But to come out with a plan that freezes property tax rates through some sort of a rebate formula for those citizens that live in governmental entity districts that hold their taxes to the tax cap, and then in the second year require them to take active steps towards consolidation of services without providing mandate relief to these local governments to be able to really shave their costs and keep their taxes in line. I don't think it's too realistic. I want to see property tax relief more than anybody because our property taxes are outrageous. But the way we're most going to see property tax relief is through mandate relief. You can't look at a county in this state that doesn't spend 100% or at least 90% of their overall property tax levy on New York State required mandates. And to say that we're going to make, the governor's going to say, you're going to have to hold yourselves in check. You're not doing a good enough job, but we're not giving you any relief on mandates is just fundamentally flawed. And if we should have mandate relief with required reductions in property taxes to go along with those mandates that we relieve, and I think that we would see property tax relief in that case.
Assemblyman Palmisano, didn't the governor promise at the 2% property tax cap that there would be mandate relief?
He sure did.
And what happens now?
It hasn't come through yet in the level it needs to come through, Brian. It's something Tom, Senator O'Mara, and I, and Oliver, Joe Giglio, Bill Noje, all of us throughout the region have been continuing to speak out about, because the tax cap was the easy part. Following through with the mandate relief is the next part. We could talk about controlling property taxes all we want. We could talk about freezing property taxes all we want, but the goal would be to reduce property taxes to make us more competitive with our neighboring states. And the only way we're going to reduce property taxes is if we get at the true cost drivers that can keep driving up our local school district and our local municipal budgets, and those are the mandates. And those are the things that the governor, in my opinion, there have been some things we've done, but there's a lot more we could do, and the governor needs to lead and take the lead on this, and he hasn't done it, in my opinion.
If we could get back to a topic that we covered in the first segment, and that's Obamacare. How is that affecting things at the state government level, starting with Senator Tom O'Mara?
Well, it's primarily a federal issue at this point. I think New York has probably dealt with it better than any other state out there as far as the healthcare exchange goes that the state government set up to take enrollees in. I think New York leads any state and individuals that have been able to get through the website and sign up for insurance. We're still hearing the issues overall federally of confirming whether an individual actually has the insurance or not, and that's going to be chaotic come January 1st when these new policies are supposed to start and cause problems. So I think with the deadline of enrollment approaching here of December 23rd, from everything I've seen in the national news, New York's healthcare exchange has been outperforming the other ones, certainly far outperforming the federal government's own exchange.
Assemblyman Palmisano, any thoughts on Obamacare affecting the state level?
Well, I think my biggest concern moving forward is more the long-term implications of the Obamacare, because along with it, we're expanding the Medicaid rolls. Last year's budget allowed for the expansion of the Medicaid rolls. You see, part of the exchange is people getting, and I think the state has been much, much more efficient and better of developing it than the federal government, no question. But a number of those people are signing up for Medicaid. And the carrot to bring us into this, one of the things was that the federal government would cover 100% of the expansion. That sounds great for year one, which is 100%, but year 2 and 3 it drops down to 90% reimbursement, but we have no long-term outlook, no commitment of what happens beyond there. And that's where I get concerned about, because we all know there's a fiscal crisis going on in Washington. There's a $17 trillion debt, and they continue to run deficits, and there's a lot of problems going down there. So if we don't have a long-term commitment from the federal government on this, if they say we're not going to pay the 90% anymore, if it just drops down to the 50%, which we pay on other Medicaid services, that's still a huge commitment out of our state budget and our state tax dollars, which we already have some fiscal challenges of our own. So I'm definitely concerned about the implementation, but I get more concerned at the long-term ramifications of this Obamacare with the Medicaid expansion that goes along with it, and then the uncertainty of the federal commitment to the program which they promised up front.
I guess what I'm getting when I go out to town, village, and city meetings as a reporter is hearing a lot of complaints, both on and off the record, about Obamacare. One public official at a local meeting a business owner was complaining about Obamacare and the incredible expense it's been on her business. One local town clerk was saying right back to that town board person that as a clerk she had to pay $300 on an insurance revision in form. Is this the kind of stuff that you're hearing from the voters about Obamacare?
I have not heard of anything of a direct expense, like you just mentioned, for revising of a form, and I certainly would like to get more information on those types of things. Specific dollar amounts is not the complaints that I've been hearing from constituents and technicalities like that. It's really the overall uncertainty, and I think being a state representative rather than a federal representative, we don't get as much direct input on that as, say, I'm sure Congressman Reed's office does in regards to these issues, because this is a federal program and not a state program. But I think we're seeing now, just with the individual market, all this chaos and the problems going forward. And next year, about this same time of the year, starting in October, I believe, when the small business enterprises have to start complying with this, it's going to be even more chaotic with all of the insurances, people that have been dropped from their insurance to this point. I believe we're going to see even greater numbers of that when this starts hitting the business directly.
Assemblyman Palmisano, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think Tom was right on, and I think the biggest things that I hear is number one, just the frustration with how this thing came about in the first place. People who are frustrated about this coming into law, how it came into law, a 1,200-page bill that no one read, that they say, I think Nancy Pelosi is the one that said, we have to pass it before we can find out what's in it. A president who said, if you want your own insurance, you can keep it. Well, that turned out not to be true. And that type of thing, people getting kicked off their insurance, those types of things are very problematic. And then having to re-sign up for another one, it costs more money because the federal government determines the policy is not good enough, but yet it was good enough for that family all the way through. And it's that type of federal government mandating and controlling 1/6 of our healthcare system, or 1/6 of our economy, is concerning. And you have employers out there that are trying to create jobs and turn this economy around, but you have this burdensome cost hanging over their head with the uncertainty that continues to ensue about it. It makes it very, very problematic to do business in this state, and it makes it very problematic just to do business overall. And it's certainly impacting a lot of people's lives, and I would say more so in the negative.
We're down to just a couple of minutes. Any final comments before we go, Senator Tom O'Mara?
No, I just like to wish you and your listeners a Merry Christmas during this holiday season. It looks like we're getting a little snow, and enjoy a white Christmas.
All righty. Thank you, sir. And Assemblyman Palmisano.
Senator O'Mara, as usual, takes the words right out of my mouth. A very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all your listeners May your families be safe and happy and enjoy this time with your families during this holiday season.
Thank you very much to State Senator Tom O'Mara and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano for coming on our weekend show. We call it Top Story now. I'm Brian O'Neill. Thanks for listening. An all-new show coming up next here on AM 1480 WLEA. Stay here.